And let me quickly share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see my screen, and it's nice and visible. All right, so today I will be talking about Kundalini, what it is exactly, why is it important to raise it, preserve it, and I hope that after this workshop you will be motivated to start your journey towards a Kundalini awakening. Don't be alarmed, it's actually quite easy, and the steps that I will be sharing with you today are very down to earth. So you don't have to worry about that. And as I mentioned before, please feel free to drop your questions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Zara. I'm a hypnotherapist, regression therapist. I'm also an energy coach. I do a variety of different modalities. Before starting working in the mental health field, I was working on Incan social fitness or wellness platform, encouraging people to live a healthier lifestyle through connecting with their friends, family, and co-workers. So a separate big shout out to our customers from Inkin joining me today or watching it later on. So what exactly is Kundalini energy? I'm sure that many of you may have heard about it, maybe through Kundalini yoga, which is one of the toughest yoga styles, in my opinion, and a very great way, by the way, to be awakening your Kundalini energy. You may have heard of Kundalini if you're following Dr. Joe Dispenza, because he talks about it, and any other New Age scientist or gurus, if I may say so. But what exactly is Kundalini and why is it so important? Kundalini is our divine fuel. Now, this may sound a little bit like blah, blah, what the hell is divine fuel, you may ask me. But let's just step away from all this spirituality for a second and think of a car. When we have a car, if a car doesn't have any petrol, we won't be able to utilize it and to get from A to B, right? So what is the first thing we need to do if our fuel tank is empty? We would have to go to a petrol station. Now, when our Kundalini energy is low, you may feel drained. You may feel that you don't have energy to, attend to your daily tasks or daily chores, let alone to be creative and to really achieve something great, something you have in mind, but you don't have energy for. And of course, the low energy level influences our relationships with people around us, whether it's family, colleagues, friends, etc. Nowadays, it's getting really harder and harder to stay connected to people because we drain so much energy while being online. And I'll talk about it as well. So that's why without our Kundalini energy, we may feel like we are a car with no petrol. Kundalini energy is also our sexual energy, which is quite related to our charisma. And in the meantime, sexual energy is very much connected to our ability to make money. Money and sexual energy, they basically come from the same source, if we may say so. So by raising our Kundalini, we are not only more energized, which dramatically improves our life in practically all its domains, but we are actually more prone to create or to attract abundance and prosperity. Kundalini is the source of power. Kundalini is the spiritual energy. Kundalini is the gateway or to elevated consciousness. It's the energy of elevated consciousness itself. Now, what does the word Kundalini mean? The word Kundalini itself is the feminine form of the Sanskrit adjective meaning coiled or circled. Why? Because it is believed that Kundalini energy is like the serpent that lies dormant at the base of our spine, around coccyx or first chakra, if you're familiar with chakra system. And once awakened, this serpent, just like this serpent over here, starts slowly going up along our spine, along our main energy channel called Sushumna. Don't worry about remembering the names. If you've never heard of them, if you haven't practiced yoga before, it's completely fine. It's not going to influence your experience of understanding what Kundalini is. So once that serpent, the dormant one, gets awakened and start moving up and reaches our head, our crown chakra, we get clarity. That's why on a daily basis, if you start working on increasing your Kundalini energy, say in the mornings, like going to a petrol station to get your full tank full, right? You will feel how different you will be throughout the day, how more productive, how more energized, etc., etc. In Hindu, it is believed that Kundalini is connected to the feminine energy of Shakti that goes up from the base of our spine to be reunited with her male partner Shiva. And once that happens, once they get reunited, that energy starts nourishing our tree of life. Okay, so let's see if there are any questions in the chat box so far. Okay, sorry, this is so confusing. No questions so far. All right. It's either one way or another. It's either me, showing you the presentation, it's in its full form, or seeing what's happening on Zoom. But I'm sure they will improve this functionality soon. So when we think of Kundalini, actually Kundalini is all over the place. We may just not pay enough attention to it. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with caduceus, this symbol here. And this is the symbol that is very much connected to the medical society. We see it in hospitals, in pharmacies. And it's the visual representation of two energies, the feminine and masculine, Ida and Pingala, respectively, getting intertwined around our main channel, the Sushumna channel. Now, if you look at caduceus closely, you will also see that it resembles a tree. So there is a connection to the tree of life. Ladies may pay closer attention and see that caduceus resembles uterus, that again is very much connected to the tree of life, because through uterus we procreate, we give lives to other humans. Caduceus is the symbol of not only medical community, but also the Greek god Hermes over here. I'm sure you've heard of him as well. Do not confuse it with the French brand. Now, Hermes is in charge of sales, communication, technology, if we apply it to the modern day life. He's in charge of trade, business. The Roman equivalent of Greek god Hermes is Mercury. Now, Mercury is the planet, again, that is in charge of communication, technology, sales, trade, etc. So people who have Mercury in their natal charts are usually quite good with all of these things. Now, I'm not going into any astrology. Do not get scared. This is not one of those kind of workshops, even though, of course, these things are quite related. Another thing about Kundalini is that it actually coded in our DNA. So I'm sure you've seen how the DNA is represented. And again, we can see the same resemblance of two energies, feminine and masculine energies, getting intertwined, creating this ladder. And this ladder represents the gateway, an ability for us to really get to the enlightenment, to awaken spiritually, to upgrade ourselves as humans. And last but not least, it is also believed that there are not 12, but actually 13 zodiac signs, and the 13th being the serpent, our familiar Kundalini energy, the snake, and it represents wisdom, which is very often met in the Eastern philosophies, serpent as the source of wisdom. All right. Now, before we continue, I want to talk about numerical psychology a little bit. It's another modality that I practice, and it may sound a little bit mambo jumbo, especially if you are not connected to any spiritual world. But again, don't be scared, because it's very, very practical, and I'll explain you later why is it practical. Because based on your date of birth, you will be able to understand how much of energy you are born with and what to do about it. Now, in numerical psychology, we believe that, first of all, a person born on a certain day is never a coincidence, because when we are born on a certain day, we are born within a specific program or a specific software, ego. These are all different terms describing basically the same thing. Now, when we are born within that program, within that software ego, we have our strengths and weaknesses, we have our triggers, and basically we have a certain understanding and perception of the world. And of course, if we have a certain understanding, when this understanding doesn't coincide with someone else's understanding, opposite us, that's when we quarrel, that's when we get into fights, misunderstandings, and leaving us with a lot of energy wasted or drained. Essentially, what numerical psychology talks about is that, yes, we are born within a specific program, within specific software, but our job is actually to upgrade that software. And that makes a lot of sense if we just take the analogy of modern day technology. You know, when we buy a phone or a laptop, any kind of a device, we will get a certain software pre-installed. Then in time, the companies, whether it's Apple, Samsung, Microsoft, etc., they will push us, they will force us to upgrade that software. Because without it, if we don't upgrade the software, the device will stop working. I'm sure that any of you has experienced that. You know, the phones will not be as productive, and the laptops, etc., any kind of a device. The same applies to us. Yes, we are born within a specific program with specific qualities, but our job is actually to upgrade it throughout our life. Now, when we are upgrading, we are slowly becoming a better person, in a sense that we are transcending our ego. So instead of just operating on the premises of our human ego, we start looking at everything from the higher point of view. So gradually, we develop ourselves spiritually. We come to enlightenment. Of course, I'm not talking about becoming a true yogi, so even though maybe it's your path, and maybe you will discover that that's what you want to do. I'm talking about being very practical, down to earth, operating on a daily basis, being productive, and building harmonious relationships around you. And that's what happens when we actually eventually transcend our ego. Okay. Now, another thing that I forgot to mention, you may have heard that there were cases around the world of Kundalini getting spontaneously awakened after, say, a person got into a nasty, dreadful car accident, and then all of a sudden they wake up one morning, they don't understand what's going on with them, and boom, they realize that they have the serpent awakened, and now they have certain abilities. Of course, we're not talking about that because these are very rare cases. However, we are able to awaken our Kundalini on a daily basis, like building up a muscle or developing a skill. Okay, so now the fun part, how to understand how much energy you were born with based on your date of birth. Now, you can see these are all the numbers that you can potentially get in your date of birth. And number 7 represents the energy of Kundalini, also sexual energy, our charisma, our ability to make money. Now, when we have just 7 in our full date of birth, so you can write down your full date of birth and see if you have a 7 in it, it means that you were born with your fuel tank half empty, so with 50% in. You know, when we buy a car, very often they get some petrol in, so we're able to actually get home or to the nearest petrol station rather, right? So it's there, it's already there, which is good news for you. Now, if you have double 7, 2-7 in your full date of birth, this means that you were born with your fuel tank full. So you have 100% capacity. If you have 777, doesn't really happen often, but there are people like that. Consider you have a nuclear reactor at the base of your spine. Now, 4-7, I've never seen anyone with 4-7, and I would say that these are probably dangerous people because they're super hyper energetic. But you know, if you've ever come across with anyone with 4-7s in their full date of birth, please give me a shout. Now, if you don't have a 7, for example, I don't have a 7 in my full date of birth, what does it mean? Does it mean that you know, that's it? You don't have energy and you are doomed? Not at all, because even having 7 in your date of birth doesn't mean that you will still be energized and productive, because if you are prone to getting into a negative mindset, it means that you will spill, drain, waste your energy at a higher rate than, say, me, you know, a person with no with no energy as per my date of birth. And I'll give you a very practical example. Now, I have a sister. She has 2-7 in her date of birth, which means that, unlike me, she was born with her fuel tank full. Now, she practically sits throughout the day, maybe in the morning when she's having her coffee, and maybe whenever she needs to do some work. She's a photographer, so sometimes she obviously works on the computer with photographs. The rest of the day, she's constantly moving. She can start cleaning up her house at 11 p.m. in the evening. If you pay me, I wouldn't do that, but she does it because the energy level is so high. She's just like this, you know, crazy person, constantly moving and doing something. She is never idle. She's never resting. On the contrary, she's restless. In my case, because I don't have a 7 in my date of birth, if I don't go to the so-called petrol station, if I don't raise my Kundalini energy in the morning, I will feel unproductive. Throughout the day, I may feel that I desperately need a nap or a numerous number of cups of coffee, sorry. I will be in a negative mindset. I can be, you know, cranky, and people may be more triggering to me. So the key here is to make sure that you visit your petrol station in the morning to raise your Kundalini energy. Now, let me see if there are any questions. Okay, you guys don't have any questions. That's either a good sign or a very bad sign, but okay, let's continue. Maybe there are going to be more questions towards the end. By the way, do you see the Q&A section? Are you able to drop a message, communicate with me somehow? So I know that it's all working. It's disabled. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, but at least I can see. No, but I can see. Yes, can see. Okay, so you are able to drop it. I think the chat box is disabled, but the Q&A section is not. Yes, Monica, thank you for the question. We're looking at the full date of birth. So your day, your month, and your year, the full year. So in my case, I'm born on 18th of October, 1984. So I would take the whole thing. So 1/8, 1/10, or 1018 and 1984 American manner. Yes, you have double 7. That's correct. If you don't have any other 7 in your day of birth, or if you're not born in July, then it's just double 7. Yes, so you were born with your fuel tank full, 100%. Okay, any other questions so far, or shall I go back to the screen? Okay, I suppose we can continue for now. Oh, okay, so I see it here. That's good. Okay, so now that we know how much energy potential we are born with, why is it important to work on it? Now, this little diagram here, as per numerical psychology, is called the matrix. So these are all the competencies or qualities that you are born with, and this matrix simply represent all the numbers in your date of birth. For example, if we take my date of birth, I have 1 and 8 in my day. I have another one in October in the month, and I have 1, 9, 8, 4. So these are the numbers that I have. But to give you perspective, why it is important to work on the 7, especially if you want to be prosperous, create and attract abundance, and I'm sure all of us do, right? So this line in the matrix, line 147, represents money and sexuality. The line 357 in the matrix represents success. And my favorite line, the 789 line, represents the line of endless money and transformation, also known the line of billionaires. So as you can see, having 7 or working up your 7 is incredibly important, because then it will catapult you. It will help you to prosper financially, to be successful, and extra prosper financially if you have this line developed. Now, as I mentioned before, even if you are not born with 7 in your full date of birth, do not despair. It doesn't mean that you are doomed, because unless you are in a positive mindset, unless you transcend your ego and develop yourself, grow as a human, the matrix, the lines are not going to be working. So you may have all the lines. You may have the line of a billionaire, of the billionaires. You may have the line of success as success and money here. But if you are constantly in a negative mindset, wasting a lot of your energy on insignificant, unimportant things, you will end up with very little capacity to really achieve big, ambitious goals. So, why raise our energy? Remember, I mentioned that the job of every human when we are born is actually to transcend our ego, to become better, to upgrade our software, or get out of our ego, our program that we're born with, is to actually climb that ladder. Remember the DNA ladder, to become better. By the way, speaking of DNA, the scientists still don't entirely know how it all works. They are still trying to figure it out. And I'm sure many of you have heard of epigenetics, which means that there are more and more confirmations of the fact that we are able to influence our DNA. We are able to change it. And unfortunately, we can change it to the worse and to the best. And whenever we are going through certain situations in life, whenever we are in a negative mindset, whenever we collect these generational traumas that we pass on to, or take on from our ancestors, or pass on to our children, we are able to change our DNA. So when we get on this path of enlightenment, I know that sounds a little bit, maybe too pretentious, so bear with me for a second. We are able to transcend, so we are able to make difference in our life, and make difference in the lives of people around us. Now, depending on the level of energy, we may get into different states of ego. So there is a state of ego that seeks happiness. And that's when we are in a positive mindset. That when we are in a positive mindset, we are able to raise our energy. Now, again, why is it important? Because even if you have double, triple 7, and you are in a negative mindset, you spill that precious fuel of yours onto insignificant things, you won't be able to sustain it, and you won't be able to raise it. If you don't have a 7, like myself, if I'm not in a positive mindset, not only I'm not able to raise my energy, I will go in a negative balance. It's like, you know, using your credit card. You won't be able to replenish it. So it's a catch-22 kind of a situation. Now, the next step, if you are not in a positive mindset, you get into the stage of the ego suffers. What does it mean to be in the positive and negative mindset? Essentially, it's when we vibrate at a higher level, at good emotions and bad emotions. I'm sure many of you have heard of the famous Cherokee legend that every human has two wolves battling each other. The white wolf that represent all the good stuff, you know, kindness, love, appreciation, gratitude, etc., and the black wolf that represents envy, jealousy, anger, etc. So who's going to win? The wolf that we feed the most. So being in a positive mindset is incredibly important, right? Because when we are in a negative mindset, we drain our energy at a higher speed, at a higher rate. And once we are below zero, once we are in a negative balance, guess what? The next stage is the ego is indifferent, and that's where we are prone to apathy. There is no energy to get out of bed. If you've ever, God forbid, experienced depression, or any of your loved ones or friends had gone through depressive episodes in their lives, you know how hard it is to get out of bed, because simply there is no energy. There is no energy sometimes to drink or eat or brush your teeth when you're depressed. This is how important energy is. Now, as I said, it's a catch-22 situation, vicious circle, because we can only, so the higher the energy level, the more we are likely to be in a positive mindset. And the more we are in a positive mindset, the more energy we are able to generate and raise. So I'm begging you, please, after this workshop, make sure you start paying attention on paying attention to how you are distributing, how you are investing your energy. Are you investing that energy into relationships with people who are not worth it, or things that are not important? Do you go and start fighting with people, you know, about very minor things? I'll give you an example. A couple of months ago, because obviously, you know, even though I've been practicing it for a while, for a few years now, I'm still human. I'm still on this path of getting better and transcending my ego, but the ego is pretty much there, because we can't just, you know, snap out of it like that. It's a constant process, but being aware is what important. And a few months ago, I got a delivery from one of the home stores, and I thought that it was just a box of garbage, to be honest with you, because it was really not very clear that the item that I ordered was packed in a certain way, which just, you know, looked like a piece of carton, piece of garbage, really. So I spent an hour of my life, which is obviously limited, on you know, fighting with customer service representative and trying to prove him that they suck at customer relationships, that their company is just, you know, all of these things. An hour of my life. And then I discovered that it was actually my fault. I didn't figure out what was what, and the person on the other end, the customer service representative, was actually quite patient and nice with me. And yes, this is how we get into negative mindset, and how we just, you know, waste our energy on things that are not significant. So next time, maybe not next time, maybe after this workshop, I would encourage you to start paying attention on how you manage your energy, because your energy is actually your most precious asset. Because lack of energy is not only going to influence your mood and your ability to create something great, to be prosperous, to be successful, but it is also very much related to your physical body. Because when there is not enough energy, the next thing we know, our physical organs start failing us. Because again, I love bringing this technology examples. Our mind is our software, our body is our hardware, and the energy is the battery, that electricity that, gets everything going. Because you may have the best car, a Ferrari, or you may have the best laptop, but without the energy, without the electricity, and without the petrol, these items are completely useless. And when we don't have enough energy, physical level is the last, the last resort, and that's when our organs start to fail. Let me see if there are any questions. Yeah, that's a very good question. So is there a way to deal with those who has higher levels of Kundalini than me? My child has 7 in her birthday and I do not have. She's very tiring for me and energy draining. Yes, because they are, naturally more energetic. They are like perpetuum mobile, right? I don't have kids of my own, but I have my nephew who also has a 7 in his date of birth, and he is restless. He can go on and on and on like this with no stops. And yes, if you don't have a 7, it may feel draining because it's harder to keep up. But the only way to keep up with them is actually, raising your Kundalini energy on a daily basis. And as cliche as it may sound, to know your boundaries. So if you are not able to keep up with her and play with her all the time, that's okay to take a break, because at the end of the day, our children need need us to be healthy. But because when it's too draining, the next step may be that you may fall into a negative mindset, and that could happen automatically, subconsciously, without you even realizing it, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm so tired, I can't do this anymore, I can't keep up with her. So I would say that raising your energy in the mornings, what I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes, is super essential in this case. Okay. All right, so this is another representation of how important it is to be in a positive mindset. You may have heard of the map of consciousness developed by Dr. David R. Hawkins. So you can see that different emotions, different feelings have different frequencies. And the lowest are the feelings of shame and guilt. That's why we need to work to remove them out of our system. And obviously, when we emanate this kind of vibrations, when we are feeling these emotions, we are draining ourselves. And we may actually drain other people as well. I'm sure if you start recalling now, maybe right now, or maybe after the workshop, once you reflect on it, on all this information, you will notice how draining it is to have a fight with someone, whether it's a customer service representative or your loved ones. We feel really, really drained. Well, at least I do, because I don't have any extra resources to spare. No 7 in the date of birth. Maybe those with double 7, they have this luxury of spilling the energy every here and there, every now and then, here and there. But still, I would encourage you to start paying attention. And again, you can see that this is our way to enlightenment, right? So the more higher frequency emotions we experience and emanate, the more we are able to transcend our ego and better ourselves. How can we measure this? I would say that paying attention on a daily basis, what kind of emotions you experience. There is a tool called like a measure. So whenever you are experience a certain emotion, and that emotion can be negative, can be positive. Ideally, those gurus, those true yogis and Buddhist monarchs, they strive to be in point zero. So they don't go high and they don't go low. They are at 0.0 because it's the ultimate goal for all of us. But let's be realistic. We are no Buddhist monarchs, and it is much more easier to be in 0.0 when you just meditate somewhere in Tibet instead of, you know, maybe driving around New York or dealing with day-to-day things at work and at home. Now, what you can do whenever you experience an emotion, try to evaluate on a scale of 1 to 10 how prominent that emotion. If it's a negative emotion, do not suppress it, because once suppressed, you know, emotion, we have energy body, right? We have blood on the physical body that we are able to see if we cut ourselves. The energy body we cannot see. But it's still there. I always give this example, you know, we all use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but we can't really see it. And we can't see a radio wave either, but we've been using it for decades. So the same applies to our energy body. So whenever we suppress an emotion, we create a clot, just like we create a blood clot. And if there are too many energy clots, the energy stops moving freely in the body. And which means that our physical organs will not get enough energy. And again, it may lead to getting health issues with our physical body. That's why please, please, please make sure you never suppress your emotions. However, not suppressing doesn't mean that you have to take your saber and start, you know, fighting with your loved ones or colleagues around you, or just someone random on the street. What you can do in that moment, ask yourself, okay, what is the emotion I'm experiencing on a scale of 1 to 10? How, you know, how high it is or how low it is. And then you can either visualize venting that emotion, especially if it's a negative emotion, say anger, right? Let's take anger. So you vent that anger out in a balloon. You can even like imagine you're venting it out in a balloon or in your head, whatever, you know, if you're a visual person, you may need like kind of a balloon in your hand, imaginary balloon, and just let the balloon fly. Or you can imagine, you know, taking that anger off your body and just dropping it somewhere in the ocean, or flushing it down the toilet. You may come up with your own metaphors. Obviously, we are all, you know, we process information differently, but it's very important to let it go, to not suppress it, but to control, not let that emotion to harm you by dragging you into a fight with someone else, because that's going to drain you even more. Another thing that you can do, it's a brilliant exercise, and you can do it in one day. Set alarm throughout the day, say from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. or 8 p.m., depending on your schedule. Set an alarm every half an hour. And once the alarm goes on, check whether you are in a positive mindset or in a negative mindset. And it's a game. You start with a balance of $100. And then every time you catch yourself experiencing a negative emotion, once the alarm goes on, deduct $10. If you catch yourself being neutral, don't add or deduct anything. If you catch yourself feeling great, you know, having a positive mindset, add a 10. So at the end of the day, you will be able to see, are you actually getting drained? Are you going into a negative balance? Or maybe you doubled or tripled your $100 at the end of the day, at the end of the game. It's a very, very useful exercise, because very often we don't even pay attention. We may just sit there at work at our computer and just, you know, have, for example, destructive, negative self-talk in our head. We may not be angry towards other people, but we may be angry towards ourselves, which is actually even worse. So that exercise. So, by the way, Monica, thank you so much for this question, because otherwise I wouldn't have shared this exercise, and it's a brilliant one. So give it a go, pick a day and see how it plays out. And if you want to share your experience with me, would be fantastic. Would be amazing to see how it played out for you. All right. Thank you. Okay, so now we know how important it is to raise our Kundalini, but how do we preserve our energy? Now, folks, some bad news, because the vast majority of us, 80%, are actually functioning at 10% of energy capacity. Now, to give you perspective, imagine you're buying a phone or a laptop, and no matter how much, how often you charge the device, after an hour or two, the battery will go down to 10 or 20%. What would you do with a device like that? Obviously, you would chuck it away or take it to the customer service representative in a company and have a fight there. I'm joking, but yes, of course, you would throw it away because it's impossible to use a device which only operates at 10, maximum 20% capacity. However, we cannot throw ourselves out. We cannot go and fight with customer representative about us being so unproductive. So how do we make sure we prevent ourselves from making this mistake, from operating at such a low capacity? Whenever we experience victim mode, or we have victim mentality, everyone needs to come and save me, everyone is at fault, that my life is this and that, my life sucks, or my job sucks, or this sucks, for example, right? When we don't take responsibility, when we don't understand what we want, what we feel, when we are not actually aligned with ourselves. Because, I mean, how can we understand other person if we are not even able to fully understand ourselves, right? When we are in disagreement with our others and circumstances, fighting people, fighting circumstances, when we want to take something without understanding how, give it to me and give it to me now, and I don't care what you have to say about it, selfishness, right? When we live in our emotions, so we're not conscious, we're not building awareness, we are not applying analysis, we're not trying to look at the situation from the third person's perspective, but we are deep inside of the situation, with no clarity, with no understanding. Basically, when we are deep down in our ego, in our software, we lose 90% of the energy or 20% of the energy. So when we, 90% or 80%, right? So when we judge, when we are resentful, when we accuse, when we hold grudges, I'm sure you've heard this expression that grudges is like, drinking poison, right? Or revenge also is like drinking poison that you have for someone else. When we are in a negative mindset, we are only operating at 10% capacity. And the situation is a little bit better when we just discuss people or situations, also known as gossiping. And we do that, of course, through the prism of our ego. Because again, what does ego do? It forces us to see the world through a certain program, our very subjective perception. But everyone is different. And as painful as it is for me to admit, there is no such thing as common logic and common sense, because everyone's understanding of the world is different. However, the more we start understanding ourselves, our program, the more accepting we are of ourselves, the more accepting and non-judgmental we are towards others. Now, of course, as I mentioned, it's a work in progress. Unfortunately, you cannot just like snap out of your ego, wake up tomorrow and be a completely new person. Just like we can't drop, lots of weight overnight or build a toned body in a week. It's a progress. It's work in progress. We need to work at it, and just like developing any skill. At the end of the day, to get a degree, we had to go through a couple of years of lectures and workshops. So yeah, now the most fun part, the practical information about how to actually raise your Kundalini energy Any questions so far? No? Okay. All right, so there are three main categories of raising your Kundalini energy. The first one is physical exercise, and that's where inking comes in handy in case you are a customer, or if you are not, you can use just a tracker or anything. So physical exercise, moderate physical exercise. There is no need to do Ironman, jogging, not at all. Ideally, if we want to raise our Kundalini, we need to walk for 6-8 kilometers, which is probably around, I don't know, 3-5 miles, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't thought it through to put it in both systems. Now, why 6-8 kilometers? Because this is the time that required. 6-8 kilometers is, by the way, around 1.5 hours. This is the time that requires for Kundalini to get from the spine, from the base of our spine, from the first chakra, to go all the way up to our head. Now, when I say that this happens, of course, it's not like, you will awaken your Kundalini in one day just by walking once. No, again, it's like building a muscle, unless there is a very, very rare case of spontaneous Kundalini awakening. But we're not talking about those rare cases here, right? So the thing that Kundalini has actually 49 layers. There are 7 levels, and each level has also 7 levels or layers, hence 49. So of course it takes time. However, you will notice if you start practicing it on a daily basis that once you go to a petrol station in the morning, well, why in the morning? Because of course, if like me, you don't have petrol at all, you will have to go to the petrol station first to get the fuel in to function. If you are luckier and you have 1 or 2.7, of course, you don't have to necessarily do it in the morning. You can do it throughout the day, in the evening. It will still be, you have that advantage over those of us who don't have number 7. Now, walking sometimes can be replaced by horse riding, cycling, trampoline jumping. Just be mindful of this one because it can be lead to injuries, or swimming. So you have options when it comes to physical exercise. If you are unable to start with 1 or 1.5 hours of walking in the morning, start small. Let it be half an hour, but you will see difference because the difference is dramatic. I'll be honest with you, all my most creative ideas come to me during my morning walks, because when Kundalini gets to our head, it gives us clarity. And that clarity could be creative ideas, that clarity could be a solution you were looking for, anything, or just peace of mind. Now that's option number 1. Option number 2 is, of course, any kind of spiritual activities, from yoga, meditations, breath work, any kind of practices that help you to, put some petrol in. Whatever you prefer. If you like praying or chanting, mantra chanting in the morning, that could be an option as well. As long as it's there, as long as you practice, that's another option of raising your Kundalini. So as you can see, these are very, very practical, down-to-earth options. And last but not least is mindful intimacy. Now, what I mean by mindful intimacy, because last time when I talked about it, people thought that I meant Tantra or something, very complicated. No, not necessarily. Of course, you can do Tantra, and then Tantra will get into the second category, really. What I mean, mindful intimacy is actually being intimate with someone you can connect with. So the opposite of being promiscuous. And I'm not preaching here, not at all, but when we are promiscuous, we are losing energy rather than raising energy. It's, again, it's just regular housekeeping to be mindful of who are you investing your energy in? Because just like money, energy is a limited resource. So we need to make sure we are not just wasting it on people that don't deserve it. So these are three very practical categories that you can implement in your life. You can, of course, mix and match. Sometimes if I don't have enough time to go for a walk, I just do this 20 minutes quick Kundalini set of exercises that I will be recording soon and putting on YouTube. If you want to check it out, it's good for your muscles, it's good for your mood, it boosts your energy. You can obviously, if you one day you maybe go for a walk, another day you may practice yoga or simply meditate for 10 minutes. And yes, this is how gradually we build this sustainable practice of raising our Kundalini. And that's pretty much it from me today. If you have any questions, let's dive in. Other than that, please keep in touch if you have any questions in the future. How much swimming a day, how much yoga, it's really, it depends on your practice. There is no such, walking is actually the best tool. It's just some people don't have time for it. But swimming, I would say, if you can swim for 20 minutes, half an hour, depends on your practice. I believe that, first, everything in moderation. And secondly, I always encourage my clients to start small rather than not start at all. So if you are able to swim for 10 minutes instead of half an hour, start with 10 minutes. If you can do half an hour yoga instead of full 1 hour, start with that. However, when it comes to yoga, I would encourage you to not skip Shavasana. The last bit when we are supposed to just lie down and enjoy the meditative process. Many people think that it's not important and they, just start running with their day, running the errands. But this is actually, Shavasana is one of the key parts of the yoga practice, because that's where all the energy that we worked with during our practice gets integrated. So that's just a separate, separate tip on yoga. Is the assumption that it goes down all the way daily, or is it more than it can decrease and we just need to keep it high? Yes, it's like with bank, think about it as money, right? In your bank. So if you if you go in a negative balance, then it will be more difficult to replenish it, right? The more we are indebted, the higher the debt, the more frustrating or tiring or difficult it is to keep increasing the savings, right? Because you have to first close the debts to start saving. So the same applies to energy. Once you are more aware, once you start paying attention to how you work with your energy, where it goes, where it gets invested, because energy follows our attention. So when we ruminate, for example, or when we watch something negative on Instagram, and we all do that, right? So ask yourself, am I being drained right now? Or am I like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? Now, if you have extra cash in your bank account, in your energy account, you may be more frivolous with how you spend your energy. But for example, in my case, I know that I cannot afford being frivolous, because then I will be just, dead duck. So, and I don't want to be a dead duck. I want to be productive. I want to be creative. I want to, sustain relationships, etc., etc. So it's very, very, it depends on the person, basically. So once you start paying attention, you'll know your dynamics. So that's why I encourage you to start doing it. Okay, any other questions? Anything you want me to go back to, explain a little bit deeper? Okay. I suppose no. Oh, and we are right on time. Wow. Okay. Love when that happens. Well, thank you so much for staying with me, for joining. I'm very, I really love talking about it, because trust me, your life will change once you start paying attention and once you start being more vigilant with how you spend your energy, because it's your most valuable currency. And if there are no other questions, I wish you a beautiful day. If it's still, morning or day. Here in Dubai, I'm located in Dubai. It's already evening, and I wish you a beautiful weekend and a great, fantastic rest of the year. And if you have any questions in the meantime, later on, please do not hesitate to reach out. And I will be sending this recording to you over the weekend or on Monday if you want to share it with someone else or rewatch it. So thanks again for joining in. And and until the next time, thank you guys. Bye-bye.